Mic's on.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Services Committee meeting. The meeting will start in 60 seconds.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Public Services Committee meeting. It's Tuesday, January 12th. I call this meeting to order. Ask for a motion for review and approval of the minutes dated November 10th.
So moved, Urbanbach.
Second, Anderson.
Minutes are approved. We're going to move into our first discussion right away, our first presentation. The first presentation is the Compass Center. So Michelle Margraf with the Compass Center Executive Director, if you would please come forward and give us your presentation.
Councilors, Michelle Margraf with the Compass Center. I'm the Executive Director. Thank you, first of all, Councilor Erickson, for inviting me to speak today and for other councilors for being here as well. The Compass Center enjoys a very good working relationship with the City of Sioux Falls, especially with the Police Department. We are on several committees together working with law enforcement here in Sioux Falls, and I have been working with them since 2011 as a rape counselor who works with rape victims in the ER, and I have only positive things to say about law enforcement in Sioux Falls. They do a great job with our rape victims. The mission of the Compass Center is to stop the cycle of violence, and we work with both sexual and domestic violence. We are not a shelter that we leave up to Children's Inn and others who can do that better than us. We do, however, work with victims as far as it goes with counseling and with advocacy. Counseling, I think most people understand. Advocacy is helping them with law enforcement, with protection orders. Advocacy can also mean helping them find a place to stay. Maybe Children's Inn, they've been there for 30 days and they have to find another spot. We help them to find a viable, safe place where they can be. Our history started in 1976, so we will be celebrating 40 years in the Sioux Falls community this next year. We started out just working with citizens of rape. After that, we added domestic violence, as well as working with play therapy and also with batterers. Because our mission is to stop the cycle of violence, about 80% of what we do works with survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence. About 20% of what we do works with the batterers, so we can go and we can stop that violence where it starts. Our funding is from a variety of places. About 40% is government, 40% United Way, 10% comes from the batterers, and 10% from citizens and private corporations. The City of Sioux Falls itself funds about 8% of our current operating budget. We are very thankful for that. It comes out of the Sioux Falls Police Department's budget. And again, we are working hand in hand with the police department. Some people ask, what is the cost of domestic violence? What is the cost of sexual assault? And there is no way for us to put a price tag individually as far as Sioux Falls goes. Nationwide, domestic violence alone causes $2.5 billion in losses as far as productivity goes. So take that, roll that back to Sioux Falls. We are losing a lot of productivity in our area corporations, companies, private enterprises. What the Compass Center does to combat that is we are giving counseling for as long as that person needs it. So a person might be in trauma, feel they cannot work. We work with them, help them work through their problems until they get to a place where they do feel comfortable in public, where they feel like they are, again, helpful citizens who can go and do jobs. We work on a shoestring budget. We only have 8 staff that are there full-time, 8 staff is part-time. Most of the part-time staff includes our facilitators who are working with our batterers on a 2-3 hours a week basis. They actually come in, the batterers come in, and our facilitators work with groups of men who are going for, most of them court-ordered. Some of them come in because it's a condition of parole. A few actually come in because they understand, I've got a problem, I need to do something to solve that problem. They come in for 25 weeks, and they work with our facilitators and with other group members to address their power and control issues that they are currently living under, and figuring out, how do I treat someone with equality rather than having to have control over that person. Again, the 2 things we work with, and the only 2 things we work with, are domestic violence, sexual assault. Any tertiary things such as stalking also come under our purview. We do human trafficking as well because that comes under sexual assault. Anybody who comes to us who is a survivor of sexual assault or domestic violence gets all services for free. If they decide they want to come to us for 5 years, they get 5 years of services for free. We aren't working with insurance companies, so we don't have to fight with insurance and get them to okay 5 years worth of services. Those people get to come as long as they want. Another good thing about that is they can come under an assumed name. So if they are not comfortable giving their name to us, even though we won't say anything to anybody, we always say we can't confirm or deny that we know this person, it still is comfortable for them to come under an assumed name. We have one lady who's Mary Smith, and it's part of the trauma that whenever she goes back to that trauma, she has trouble remembering things. She always comes to us and she'll call and she'll say, I want to check if I have an appointment tomorrow, but I can't remember what name I gave to you. And we say, you're Mary Smith, we know who you are, we know the name that you gave to us. That's perfectly fine. It makes her feel safe to come to us that way. The statistics are important to look at to see what kind of a problem this is. The national statistics are ones I'll just let you look at. You can look at later as well in your packets. What you want to know, I'm sure, is what about South Dakota? What about Sioux Falls? Sioux Falls has actually been doing better lately as far as sexual assault goes. Just a few years ago, that FBI number of having 1.5 times the rate of the nation enforceable rapes was much higher. It was in the 3.2 range. So for 14, we reduced that drastically. However, we are still above the nation as far as rapes. The Sioux Falls metro area, even though we're about 26% or so of South Dakota, we have 30% of those rapes of the state. Sioux Falls, from January to June, which is the last records that we pulled from the police department, you can see up there. The number of rapes are increasing. We have an increasing population. We have more and more college students on our campus. The number of rapes are increasing per capita. That is, again, a 2012 number. In the 2014, I did not pull that number. It is a little bit less because our per capita went down for 14. The services that we give to survivors, and again, all of these are free. We give free play therapy to kids who are ages 3 to 12. We start at age 3 because that's when kids can start to talk and interact with someone. We are currently full at play therapy. I have one counselor that does play therapy. She's got 33 kiddos. That's her limit that she can do. The rest, we will find another place for them, or we will put them on a waiting list if they cannot pay for services or do not have insurance for play therapy. Once they hit age 12, they get to go to individual counseling. I am very blessed to have someone who loves to work with the teenagers, and my other 3 adult counselors are blessed because they want to give all the teenagers away to somebody, so it works perfectly that we've got somebody that wants to work with those teens. The advocacy services are great and can vary from person to person. I have a victim advocate who is wonderful, who knows the community of Sioux Falls and can help the people. She just came in my office last week, and she was so excited because a woman had come to her for a protection order. And the way the woman wanted to write the protection order would not have gotten it granted. She had all that emotion, all the feelings she wanted to put in the protection order. And my victim advocate was able to wrestle with her a little bit and get those feelings pulled out, put in the things that the judge is looking for, and then that temporary protection order was granted. And she was so excited because that was one way she could see, I really made a difference in this person's life and helped them. We do a lot of legal advocacy as well. If someone wants one of us to go and talk to the detective with them, because that can be scary, we will go and talk to them. It's up to the detective if we are actually in the room or not. Some detectives prefer us not to be, and that's fine. But we'll be there before and afterwards to hold that victim's hand and just to help them feel more comfortable and hopefully more free in giving information for the process. We do the same for a grand jury if that's needed, or going to talk with state's attorneys, as well as trials. We have somebody there if they want somebody with them in the trial. Sometimes when it's a kid, we've got a 5-year-old right now who needs to go to trial. Unfortunately, they are not allowing the videotape that took place at Child's Voice to work, and the child actually has to testify. So we have been spending time working with the child beforehand, going through what do you do, what do you tell the judge, kind of play acting so that 5-year-old is ready to take the stand and not fall to pieces. Personal advocacy, we always do safety planning. A lot of people come to us and they say, why is this person staying with their abuser? Why aren't they leaving? And there can be many different answers, from not having any money, to he has the keys to the car, to him saying, well, I'm going to take the kids if you leave me. You're not going to get the kids. So for whatever reason, people decide to stay, and it takes about 7 times for a woman to leave and then come back and leave and come back before they finally leave. So a bunch of what we do is safety planning. If that woman decides that the safest place for her is right with that person, then we say, what are you going to do at 2 a.m. when your boyfriend comes home drunk and he's mad? How are you going to stay safe? And we work through that, getting a safety plan, an escape route. Maybe it's calling 911, maybe it's going to a neighbor's. But we work with them very much on safety, trying to keep them safe no matter where they decide they need to be in their life. Our ultimate goal is to get them out of that abusive situation, but we have to do it on their time. It can't be on our time. We also give services to offenders, which I said was about 20% of what we do. The offenders, most of them come in not wanting to come in. It's a condition of court or parole. They're a very interesting group of people. Right now we have 5 groups of men that come in, 1 group of women, and 1 group we call aftercare. The people who come in for the battering program have to pay for the program. They have to be accountable for what they've done. It's $100 for them to get assessed from us, and we might decide, yep, you need to come to our group. We might decide it's a anger management issue. You need to go to LSS and get anger management classes, not us. And there are a very slight percent where we might decide this was a one-off thing, something crazy happened in their life and they blew up for no reason, it's not going to happen again. At which point we would tell the court they don't need to come back. We feel confident it's a one-off. When they come, they have to come for 25 weeks, and it has to be 25 weeks in a row, half a year, and they have to pay every week. It's $10 to $100 depending on what they are making for income. If they do not come in the first 6 weeks, for one of those weeks, they start over at week 1. If they miss any 2 weeks in a row, they start over at week 1. And if any time in the 25 weeks they miss 3 times, they start over at week 1. So if they're at week 21, they miss their 3rd time, they start over. There's a start over fee, and then they have to start paying all over again at week 1. What's neat about the groups is that all different times are in there. You can have a week 2, a week 10, a week 15. because they just flow in and out as they come in. So now you've got guys who've been there for 25 weeks who are graduating, who can talk to those week 2 guys who are saying, I don't know why I'm here, I didn't do anything wrong, I just pled guilty because it was easier. You have those 25-week guys going, what are you doing? That was really stupid of you. You are now not going to be able to get a job because this is on your record. And we have them mentoring the younger group members rather than the facilitators having to do it, which is kind of neat to see. When the men come in and the women for their one group, we work with these 2 circles that you'll see. The first is power and control. All of the people that come to our groups are here because they've used some form of power and control over their victim. And it could be any of those 8 that you see there. Usually it's a combination. In very rare cases, it will be somebody has used every single one of those 8 for their partners. We have them take a look at their lives. It's usually looking back over the week. When did I use my child to try and get control over my spouse? When did I threaten to take away money to get my girlfriend to do what I wanted her to do? And then they go to the equality circle and they say, which of these should I have done instead? And it's a lot of listening to other people doing this. It's a lot of yourself doing this. I did not do it the way I should have. I did this. I should have done this. I've been to a group where I heard one guy say, yeah, she came home and she bought whatever clothing and I got mad at her and I knew I was going to do something really bad, so I had to get out of the house and I went to my friend's house and waited till I was not mad. So there we're seeing that they're starting to substitute something a little bit more healthy than what it would have been at first. Our impact, this shows you what we have reached in the last fiscal year, which ended in July 1st. Our impact of 1,131 survivors was with us being down 2 counselors for a few months out of that year. So our impact is actually much more. We should be more like at 1,200, 1,250. We were down a little bit. The 62 kids coming in, we can do 32 to 33 at a time. Often that's also working with mom and dad who bring in the kids because they also have secondary issues as well. If something happened at daycare, they're going to be working through that problem as well. If it's a little child, we often find mom and dad are more concerned about what happened rather than the child, because to the child it's normal. To mom and dad, it's earth-shattering, earth-breaking. We need to work with them so that they don't tell the child it's earth-breaking, earth-shattering, and so that they can be healthy with the child. You see the number of offenders is 258, while only 55 completed the program. Some of that is because it's a 6-month-long program. So you have to wait the 6 months. We've got the restarters, which take a toll. Some of our men go back to prison or to jail during that time, and then we don't see them again until they get back out. And then there's a lot of movement, people moving to different states. So we do have a good completion rate. It's hard to hit them all in 1 year, though, that 258. And then finally, we have It's in the Bag coming up in February. If you want to hear more about the Compass Center, I invite you to come on out to It's in the Bag. We've got some survivors who are going to be talking. Holly Hoffman, who is on the show Survivor and is also a victim of domestic violence, will be there and tell her story as well. Talk about her time on the show as well as seeing domestic violence in her family. Also, you are more than welcome to give me a call. I love to show off the Compass Center. It's sometimes easier to see what we do by actually taking a tour of the Compass Center and getting a one-on-one on what we do. So I would welcome you to also give me a call anytime, and I'd be happy to set up a tour for you. Any questions on the Compass Center?
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Rippenbach.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. I was one of those people that did take the tour, and I appreciate you allowing me to do that. It was eye-opening, and I appreciate what you do. Question about the statistics that put South Dakota's rape numbers higher than the national averages. Do we have any analysis on why that might be?
Yeah, the FBI just reports the numbers. They don't report underneath the numbers. I have not seen anything that says, why are we higher? Alaska, at one point, Alaska was state number 1, South Dakota was state number 2. So the two things, we've got the cold weather and we've got lots of drinking. So that probably plays into it.
Interesting lifestyles. Thank you, though. I appreciate your work and those folks that are here with you and those folks that work with you. I appreciate what you do. It's important to us.
Any other questions?
Sure. Basically, you were, the last couple slides there, you were showing us number of people affected by your services. So was the 1,200, was that the total number, or do you still add on to those other? So is it actually a larger number of people that you see through your whole services?
The 1,200 was the number of survivors for the year, and they get about 8,000 to 9,000 services.
So basically, we're really talking more, you touch about 1,500 people or more.
Definitely.
Okay. And I don't know if Chief Burns could come up and maybe help with a few questions here.
Don't go far.
Hello.
Thank you, Chief. Out of your budget, what does go to the Compass Center a year? We see a percentage, but what number actually is diverted to the Compass Center?
Yeah, I believe it's right around $50,000. And for 2016, that was increased significantly over the 2015 amount. But I guess from a personal point of view, and certainly as chief, we speak in terms of community partners with the police department. Amongst those, we see Sanford, we see Avera, we see big institutions like that, and certainly the colleges. But amongst those, and probably just as important, if not more so, are institutions just like the Compass Center for the impact that they have on our community. So the work that Michelle does and her team does is incredible in the effect that it has on the lives of victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse.
And you said 50,000?
50,000.
50.
I believe
Okay.
that's accurate.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I have a couple things.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for coming. I did invite Michelle and some of the staff to come today. Oftentimes, we only hear about Michelle, the Compass Center, when there's a story in the newspaper about maybe something happening. And it's just unfortunate that we aren't able to highlight more of the services that you do offer and making the impact in the services. I know for me, when I first started hearing about the Compass Center, I didn't realize that you worked with the offenders as well. And that was really eye-opening to me, because it's really about that recidivism and getting them back into being a positive person in our city. I do have a question in regards to, there was a task force, Jolene's Law, the task force. Was there any, did you guys have anything to do with that, or a part of that task force that was done at the state level?
We do not. We have an advocate over at Child's Voice, and they are very active with Jolene's Law, and we've talked with them and given them our input that way.
Right, so there's representation. I was just curious about that. I want to mention again the event, February 18th. If people can get there, it's such a great way. We are mandated by state law to be able to offer these services, and so this nonprofit does this for our community, like you said, on a shoestring budget. And as a survivor myself, I thank you for what you do in our community. Yes. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Before, if I may ask
Yes.
one more, could you talk a little bit about your fundraiser here that you're doing?
Sure.
Let the public know.
The fundraiser it's in the bag. It's February 18th at the Sioux Falls Convention Center from 5 to 8 p.m. It started out 7 years ago as something with purses, and we realized sexual violence and domestic violence affects men too, when it affects their wives and their children and their sisters. So we have expanded it so that it's in the bag, it's not in the purse. So we've got golf bags. This year we have 3 tool bags. 2 of them will be full of tools. We've got gym bags, things like that, so that it will appeal to men as well as to women.
And how do you get tickets?
We can get tickets through the Compass Center website, which is thecompasscenter.org, or by calling our office, which is 339-0116.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
It's a fun event. Councilor Erpenbach and myself were both there last year, and the event is really growing every year, and this is their main fundraiser that they have, and so
It is.
I invite you all to attend and pick up some fun items that they have. So thanks again so much for coming. I appreciate your time being here. If there's no other questions, It was strictly informational, so thanks for coming.
All right, thank you.
We will move on to our next agenda item. I know we are up against a little bit of time, so we will need to be done about that 6:15-ish time frame. So we'll kind of play it by ear. All right, next up is the South Dakota Board of Massage Therapy by Jennifer Staley, Executive Secretary, as well as I know that there is some public input as well as others here available as well. So take it away.
Thank you very much. My name is Jennifer Staley. I serve as the Executive Secretary for the Board of Massage Therapy, and I will try to give you a brief overview of the board so that if there's questions about our role and responsibilities or anything that I can provide additional information on. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a background specific to the board. The board was created by the legislature in 2005, and its mission is to protect the health and safety of the public through licensure of qualified people to practice massage therapy. So we are a regulatory board. We're not a law enforcement board. We make sure that the people who are licensed to practice massage therapy are qualified to do so. The board is funded by the licensing fees and renewal fees paid by the licensees. And our role is consumer protection. One of the ways that we fill that is to make sure that there is always a list of licensed massage therapists on our board, both for you as a consumer to check and make sure that the massage therapist that you are going to is licensed, and also for law enforcement to be referencing with regard to folks who may not be licensed. Our board is made up of 5 members. 4 of them are licensed massage therapists, 1 of them a lay person. That's according to law. Karen Kappel, who is a licensed massage therapist in Del Rapids, is our current president. Linda Zeller is our vice president and our lay member. She resides in Pierre. Christine Elwine is a licensed massage therapist and secretary of the board from Pierre. And Meg Johnson and Bridget Myers, who I believe is here this evening, are also licensed massage therapist representatives, and both of them are from Sioux Falls. As I said, the Board of Massage Therapy was established by the legislature in 2005. You may remember that, Councilor Staggers. State law requires that everyone who practices massage therapy is licensed to practice. Prior to that, I believe the City of Sioux Falls did have a registration or licensure requirement on the books that was then removed after the state license went into effect. There have been some adjustments made to the law. In 2008, the law was amended regarding some grandfathering provisions because there was an allowance for people to transition to license. Some of the requirements of licensure were waived for those folks if they moved their license over in a period of time. In 2013, there was also amendments that were brought. Notably, there was a change in the inspection power of the board, and the fining authority for the board regarding unlicensed practice was removed by the legislature. That was about the time that I started with the board, and my understanding is that that legislation was brought in response to the board being criticized for being too aggressive in its pursuit of complaints and unlicensed practice. In 2015, the board brought a very brief bill that addressed a definition of unprofessional conduct, specifically to address a person that we had who had a felony conviction. We did that in advance of the 2016 legislation, which I will talk about in just a moment, because at the time the board was preparing to do a comprehensive review of its statutes, but in 2015 we could fix that relatively easily for the person who needed it fixed, and it needed to be fixed. Just highlight that the board did not bring the legislation in 2008 or the legislation in 2013, but as I said, we are bringing some legislation in 2016. Just to give you a quick snapshot of the number of people we're talking about, when the board first started to issue licenses in 2006, there were 479 massage therapists who were licensed. 2015, we just finished our renewal cycle. At the end of the year, we have 799 active licensees, 221 inactive licensees. Those are folks who can go active again at some point. We've averaged 809 licensees over the years. And in order to become licensed, you have to have at least 500 hours of massage therapy training in certain courses. You have to have passed a national exam. You must carry at least $250,000 in malpractice insurance. And then you're required to do biennial CE as well as maintaining that malpractice insurance. As I said before, the Board of Massage Therapy is a regulatory board. Our role is to make sure that the people who are qualified to be licensed can get licensed, and those folks who are not qualified to be licensed are not. So we have been very active in denying licenses for different people who have not met our criteria. Our jurisdiction is also to make sure that those folks who are licensed are behaving appropriately, and so when there are complaints against a licensee, the board handles those complaints. Again, just like every other regulatory board, our jurisdiction, if you will, is over the people that we license, not over people who are not licensed. Fairly complicated definition if you're not a massage therapist, but this is the definition of massage therapy, the things that we consider to constitute massage therapy. So if you're doing those things, you're required to be licensed. If you're doing those things and you're not licensed, that would be unlicensed practice. And so it's used both from the standpoint of determining whether or not you need to be licensed and determining if you should have been licensed when you're performing those particular acts. The legislation that I'm referencing does have some minor updates to that to tighten that definition so that both the people who are licensed understand what they can do and the people who aren't licensed will understand that they're required to be licensed if they're doing those things. Unlicensed practice, which I think is perhaps the driving force for why I'm here today to give you a little bit of information. Practicing massage therapy without a license is a Class 1 misdemeanor. That is a criminal offense that's punishable by 1 year in county jail or a $2,000 fine or both. Again, as I said before, we are a regulatory board. We are not a law enforcement board. We are not law enforcement. We don't have handcuffs. We're not able to cite anyone for a crime. We do have the authority to pursue civil actions against people if they are practicing without a license, but I think it's very important to understand that there are some significant limitations to that, both from the expense and the fact that the folks who are practicing without a license can be very difficult to find once they've been alerted to the fact that the board is aware that they're practicing without a license. We do take disciplinary action against licensees who are not conducting themselves appropriately. And I'll talk to you about some additions that we're making as far as a licensee allowing unlicensed practice in a moment. In addition to the fact that we don't have criminal authority to address unlicensed practice, there are some legal ramifications and some parameters that we have to follow. Most recently, there's a United States Supreme Court ruling that has to do with market boards and antitrust and making sure that you're not restraining trade when you have a board that is made up of more than a majority of professionals regulating a profession. That is something that's impacting boards across the state and across the nation. And to be very honest with you, we are still looking for some clarity on that as to how to interpret that. And I think there's going to need to be some follow-up cases for the Supreme Court to perhaps provide some more clear guidance on exactly what it's intending with regard to its North Carolina ruling. That said, the board does accept complaints against unlicensed practice. We just don't have a remedy. And so when we have an unlicensed practice complaint, the board's policy is to refer that to the local state's attorney for any appropriate criminal charges, since that's where the criminal enforcement authority would be. Unfortunately, we don't have the authority to investigate complaints against non-licensees. So in fairness to the state's attorney, when that referral is made to the state's attorney, it's a pretty thin file because we have the complaint from the person who filed it with the board saying, you know, John Doe is practicing without a license, and we may or may not have a response from John Doe, but we don't have the authority to go and investigate because, again, we're a regulatory board, not a law enforcement agency. Again, while we might not be law enforcement, we do work closely with and cooperatively with federal and local law enforcement regarding certain cases. We have been in contact with your city police to aid them when they have asked, and we have certainly passed along information to them regarding individuals or applicants that may have risen to a level of concern for us. We work with and are advised by the Attorney General's office, and we have also consulted with the Office of Homeland Security at their request and at our request regarding information that may come available to our board. In our regulatory capacity, we contact other state licensing boards. We file any disciplinary actions or denials of license with national organizations and national databases to help address the issue of people who may be going from state to state to state trying to get licensed. So we do try to fill that role with regard to the limitations that our regulatory board status puts on us. I've mentioned that the board is proposing some legislation, and it is House Bill 1027. You can check that on the Legislative Research Council page, or we can get a link to you. The board undertook a comprehensive review of the Practice Act. It set up a work group. It took input from the public, from member organizations, went through section by section, and ultimately made some recommendations regarding what changes could be made in the Practice Act. Specific to the law enforcement and the unlicensed practice, there's a number of other changes in the bill that have to do with qualifications for temporary permits and things like that, but specific to unlicensed practice, House Bill 1027 will add a Class 1 misdemeanor for anyone who's owning, operating, or managing a business that knowingly employs or contracts with someone they know is unlicensed and practicing massage. We're requiring massage therapists to display their license. That is a requirement right now, but we're reinforcing that it be displayed and or produced along with photo identification upon request, and failure to do that would be a petty offense. Our hope with that is that is a little more law enforcement friendly rather than having to check the list to see if Jennifer is licensed. If I'm standing in front of the law officer and I can't produce my license or my photo identification, that would be a citable offense. At the end of the day, I realize it's a petty offense, but just like the smoking violations or other petty offenses that you see in the city, when you start to notice the trend with those at a certain address or from a certain person, that certainly I think will be an indicator to your law enforcement about maybe trying to do something different there. We're also adding specific to licensees in our definition of unprofessional conduct that engaging in any act that's aiding or abetting someone who's practicing without a license would be unprofessional conduct and therefore a reason for us to take someone's license. I will tell you that at our most recent meeting, the board did act on an allegation of unprofessional license, and we did take the license of someone here in Sioux Falls who had several citations at a location where other people were practicing without a license, and she was licensed, and her license was revoked by the board. Inherent in the discussion about what to put in the bill, we also talked about some things that didn't make it into the bill because we didn't have consensus around them. There was discussion by this group about whether or not we should require establishment licensure, similar to what you see for salons. And at the end of the day, that came out of our draft fairly early because there was opposition by the licensees to be paying an additional fee to basically enforce noncompliance by non-licensees. We talked about whether or not we should be doing more inspections or actual inspections of licensees' facilities to make sure that they were complying with the requirements as a licensee. And the costs of going and inspecting the folks who are already licensed appeared to outweigh the benefit of doing that. And then finally, we did have a conversation about whether or not we should be trying to reinstate the authority to inspect locations that are unlicensed where we have a complaint about unlicensed practice. And at the end of the day, again, we're a regulatory board, and there are criminal implications to going in and searching someone's, whether it's their home where a lot of massage therapists practice, or a business. And at the end of the day, that was not something that was ultimately recommended to be included in House Bill 1027 because of the law enforcement implications. Now, I think law enforcement would be able to tell you that if there's known criminal activity going on, the premises may be searched by law enforcement, but they would go through the normal warrant process, probable cause, and all of those things that are not within the purview of the Board of Massage Therapy. Again, we think there are a lot of collaborative opportunities for the board and law enforcement, and we certainly thank, in particular, Lieutenant Mixel and Sergeant Nyberg, who I work with here locally, for their cooperation, but we try to provide the information that we can. We think the petty offense with that ticketing option will be something that may help law enforcement move forward with some of the issues you're seeing, and we also believe that the inclusion of the aiding and abetting as unprofessional conduct will allow us to help massage therapists police themselves as far as anyone who might know about unlicensed practice. For what it's worth, the statewide licensure, I think the requirements that we have now provide a consistent way to address massage therapy practice and unlicensed practice. While I know that you are probably hearing about some unlicensed practice cases or issues here in Sioux Falls, it's not just in Sioux Falls, and if we go to a local licensure, we're either going to see a duplication of regulation, presuming that the state license stays in place where people are needing to get a license here in your community and also a state license, or a void of regulation because not every community is going to regulate. And then what you're doing is pushing the unlicensed practice from this community to the next community to the next community. House Bill 1027 will be considered by the legislature, which actually convened this afternoon. And I think that it's important to understand that that was the first time that the board took a comprehensive look with input from a number of parties, and I think we have consensus on House Bill 1027 that that's a forward step for the board and for massage therapists, and we hope that the changes that we're proposing will begin to address the issue. If there are other options down the road that we see, we can certainly address them at that point. That concludes my presentation. I certainly would stand for any questions that you have. I'm not sure what your process is, or be available, and just again refer you to the Legislative Research Council site for House Bill 1027.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I think we'll, do you want to ask questions of Jennifer now, or do you want to wait, take some public input? Let's do public input first then. Anybody here want to speak in regards to this issue? In regards to the Massage Therapy Board, anything that you heard today or any concerns that you have? Come on up, state your name for the record, please. Yep, come on up, yep, state your name for the record, please.
My name is Veronica Ludwig, and I'm a practicing massage therapist. I'm a business owner in Sioux Falls. I've been concerned about the proliferation of illegal massage establishments in the state and the Sioux Falls area. I am very pleased that local law enforcement have been successful in closing some of these establishments in Sioux Falls. And I'm also very happy that our board and our government officials are here tonight discussing future options for the most effective way to support each other and being able to verify legitimate massage businesses and shutting down illegal establishments. Illegal massage and bodywork establishments send the wrong message about our cities and our state. They send the message that solicitation, potential human trafficking, and illegal business practices are acceptable in our communities. They also detract greatly from the time, effort, and finance that legitimate business owners and massage professionals have put into their careers and their communities. I've been thinking about some of the easiest ways to create a legal framework that supports the mutual goals of our state's massage board and law enforcement agencies to protect our communities and our profession from illegal activity in our state. I believe that sometimes starting locally is the best way to affect policy across the state. One of the easiest options for all concerned parties is to successfully work together would be to create local city ordinances and legislation that allow law enforcement to be able to directly issue city licensure violations that can and will lead to permanent closure of offending businesses. Another option could be a specific business licensure for massage therapy establishments under the Business License Office before they are allowed to open, advertise, or operate. Creating local legislation that could be adopted by other communities or by the state would empower all local law enforcement to work directly with the massage board to shut down all illegal activity in our communities due to licensure violation. I understand that if we're able to successfully stop these businesses in Sioux Falls, they probably will migrate to other communities. But it's also up to those communities and their city councils to then look at what we've done in Sioux Falls, maybe adopt that legislation, copy and paste Sioux Falls for Brandon or T, and move forward with their own local law enforcement, because that seems to be the most direct way to address the literal businesses that are opening up on business corners, on main thoroughfares all over town. And as a business owner, I can tell you, I got a text on my phone, I can show you this morning, from someone from out of state wondering if I provide full service massage. And this happens regularly, and it's gotten worse since a lot of and I'm just gonna name it, the Asian massage parlors have been allowed to open in Sioux Falls. By creating local statutes and or massage business licensure that owners need to apply for and be approved for, we can begin to identify who is operating our communities. We can create rules that will allow local law enforcement and the board to work together in supporting legitimate business and closing down illegal practice. One of my ideas, like a specific business licensure, especially for people who are not massage therapists. If you are not a licensed South Dakota massage therapist and you want to open a massage establishment or a business that is providing these services, I believe there should be a separate business licensure for that type of individual that they have to be approved for. And part of the rules that the city and the massage board could then create together could be specifically and directly communicated to these people so that they cannot deny their knowledge of the law, or that all of these things that are illegal for massage therapists to do should also be illegal for non-massage therapist business owners. And again, with specific licensure violations that the police can actually give, and then let local governments decide how many of those licensure violations do you need to get before we permanently say you need to close your door, you need to lock it, and you cannot operate in this city at all going forward. Possible rules could include creating an application that would specifically educate massage establishment owners of what constitute licensure violations that they have to sign to help enforcement of the revocation of a business license if violations occur. Ignorance of the law is not a defense. Take control of the word massage. Verbiage that requires that you have a specific license for a massage therapy business, and any words referring to massage, such as massage, massage therapy, bodywork, etc., and in any electronic, paper, or indoor/outdoor signage advertising should be defined. Like from a city perspective, you should not be able to advertise the word massage unless you have one of these licenses. You could also add a time restriction on hours of operation with all service times to end at 10 or 11 p.m. With any businesses offering services after this time, they would effectively be in licensure violation. That's another violation that you could create for law enforcement, so that if a person just goes in there and receives a service in the middle of the night, it's a licensure violation, whether or not it was a lewd act or not. Because a lot of these places, my understanding, they absolutely would take clientele at 2, 3 in the morning. The business and tea, I understand, would actually have something on the door for after hours. If you show up, give us a call. You know, there are things that we can do, just like with liquor laws. Like for the longest time, you couldn't serve spirits on Sunday, and you can't serve alcohol after 2 a.m. Like, I think it's reasonable to think that most people are not providing legitimate massage services at 1 or 2 in the morning. Any manipulation of tissue as defined as massage therapy cannot be provided by an unlicensed person and should be considered a violation, again, under city law, not just massage board, but under city law. You could also create a massage license from the board that includes a picture of the therapist that must be displayed in their therapy room to make it easier to identify legitimate therapists that can be cross-checked with their massage license number to identify falsified documents. In congruency with the massage board, you could also create language suitable to the board and law enforcement that any out-of-state therapist must provide verification of passing the national test, regardless of their state documents, and verify it with the national board, which you can do by checking their website or calling their 1-800 number, which I did today, and they did verify that the national test currently is only offered in English. With the exception of Puerto Rico, you can get it in Spanish. But anyone who does not speak fluent English it would be almost impossible for them to pass that test. And if they don't read English, it would be extremely hard for them to pass that test. And unfortunately, again, when we're looking at the reality of the businesses we're talking about in Sioux Falls, these are people who are not fluent in English. And I think that's a safe assumption. The cost of business licensure, of course, must be determined to make it the most cost-effective for all parties involved. The number of violations allowed before a permanent closure of a business should also be determined. And it also, I'm wondering if it's possible to make residency a requirement to get business licensure, either U.S. residency, or I've lived in states where you had to live there for a year before you were allowed to apply for certain government benefits. I lived in Hawaii, and you were not allowed. I knew people that tried to apply for food stamps or this, that, and the other thing, and they were not allowed to do that until they've lived and paid taxes in this state for 6 months. So I feel like there are ways that you can identify people who are clearly not from our community, who clearly may have ulterior motives, and you can set up roadblocks for them to just be able to come in and get a license. I think another very obvious thing that you could do with a business license would be literally to ask how many treatment rooms. And if it's a larger business that has multiple treatment rooms, they're planning on having multiple therapists, again, I think they'd be a perfect candidate for a city business licensure. You could exempt South Dakota residents, Iowa, Minnesota residents who are U.S. residents who have taken a qualified massage course from a South Dakota entity who hold a South Dakota license in good standing and who are sole proprietors with only one treatment room in their home or business. You could exempt them from this licensure, but this is a way that Sioux Falls can act locally and then hopefully let that spread to other communities. But again, creating a business license for people that are again, when I drive by these places, there are these huge businesses on like 41st and Western. Like, I'm aware that that rent on that building has got to be really high. You know that there's not just one therapist in that building working. It's impossible. And so clearly there's something funny going on. So to me, this is just obvious stuff. And again, I am aware that in the past there has been pushback on trying not to add additional expense to sole proprietors. I am successful in my business, so sometimes some of this financial cost is really no big deal for me, but I'm aware that a lot of people aren't. They're very part-time. And that's why, again, I think that if we get creative, this could be a very simple way. Like, to me, like, let's just create some statute laws, some city laws. It seems simple. So I'm not really sure what everybody needs, but to me, it's a no-brainer. So.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? I just ask that the next person come up, have it be new information and not repetitive to what was already said. I ask you to limit it to, I know she was the first speaker, so she had a lot of information, so I let her go a little bit longer, but we ask that you keep it to the 5-minute time frame. Anybody else would like to speak? Or are there any questions? Great. Councilor Urbamba.
We're ready for questions for...
Unless anybody else would like to speak, I mean... We'll move to questions. Please state your name for the record.
Do you want to do questions first?
Nope, we'll do questions after you're done, just so we can have all the information, and then...
My name is Randa Heller. I'm a licensed massage therapist from Sioux Falls. I appreciate so much that you are taking this time. Thank you. A lot of what Veronica said, she did have a lot of information. We've moved forward a lot in the last year. Prior to this, the massage complaints of unlicensed massage would lay on the desk of the state board for months before they were forwarded or dismissed. That changed in March. I hope that they do get some definition of what authority they need to enjoin a civil action. The North Carolina board is elected. Our board is appointed by the governor. We have oversight by the health department. We also have someone from the state's attorney at every board meeting, and they are there. So why we need definition of what is enough oversight for this board to go ahead and start a civil action against unlicensed massage. It is expensive, but oftentimes the first salvo, when they know they're being watched, they do close and leave. Our Sioux Falls Police Department was incredibly effective without any board involvement. So a couple, 3 therapists, myself and a couple others, were very effective with our street crimes unit. China Massage and Tea is closed after 10 years. They were cited, they were convicted. Asian Health had 2 locations. She had 1 license. She was warned in January by our police. She was cited in February. She was then, those citations resulted in a suspended jail and a small fine. Then the state board was able to take that information and revoke her license, as Jennifer stated. She didn't tell you that they only revoked it for 1 year. Okay? Those are the Asian Health places, and she has very nice places. Those are the 2 Asian Health places if you want to take a look at them. Now what happens is, on 41st, Asian Moonlight Relaxation Center, this was Asian Moonlight Massage last December when I went in. There were 0 licensures. They have now renamed themselves. It says right on their signage that they are doing essential oil body work. Essential oil body work, they are doing a 60-minute treatment for $70. They are putting essential oils on your back, and they are doing massage. We now have scope of practice issues. Who is going to enforce these? If something isn't figured out between the state and the city, and because Sioux Falls is the largest state, or the largest city, and we have the intersection of the 2 interstates here, what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of relaxation centers. If something isn't done, what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot of, if you're ready for this, and Tamara, you used to license us here at City Hall. You're going to have body wash centers where they're going to offer table showers. It's not going to be massage. What are you going to do with them? They're going to be here. They're in other states. Something needs to be figured out. So we do have legislation coming up. Now, just because we had input certainly doesn't mean you get everything you ask for. I have brought a copy of the Model Practice Therapy, the Model Practice Act from the Federation of Massage Boards. I've turned down the corners and starred some sections that would define massage better, that would take control of what exactly massage. If you're using the name bodywork, if you're using any of those names, you're indicating that you are actually in our scope of practice. Councilman Anderson asked if I would bring this. May I give that to you, sir? Excellent. So my main goal, move forward, make this law effective, make this law enforceable, make this law efficient. Councilman Staggers, you are always about the bottom line. We have a lot of massage therapists who make under $18,000 a year. They are part-time, and many of us who work out of our home in Sioux Falls, I did have to get a home license from our city hall. It cost me $20. They asked me for a copy of my state license. I am restricted to 4 clients per day. So if we already have our state license, we have our liability insurance, we have our continuing education, we already, for those who are paying rent, who are advertising, you have all of the costs associated with doing a massage, your linens, your oils, your table, there's a lot of things that you can add to make that business good for your people. So I wanted to leave you with, there's also a picture here of 2 others that were shut down. When the police go in, if there's no licensure, they do close. I do believe if the state board can figure out how to start filing injunctions, this will help. The last thing I want to say is, again, thank you to our police officers and the police force. I think that cooperating, we've heard the word cooperating. Cooperating is not communication. I think if we had a 2-member task force from the state massage board that were communicating with police officers, because we have a place in Rapid City, Ruby, Hong Kong, that came before the board. They've already been convicted. They wanted licenses. They were simply denied licensure. Ruby, Hong Kong is open. 10 months later, they are still open and operating. They can't have any more licenses. They just can't have found any, because we can see the list and we know where those names are. They cannot have 2 Asian massage females there because they had 0 when they came before the board, and they are open. And to add insult to injury, they are asking $70 for a regular massage, but for a soft touch massage, it's $90. There's not a massage therapist in this room who won't tell you, if you're doing Swedish massage, you charge less. If you're doing deep tissue massage, you charge more. A soft touch massage, I don't know how to interpret that as anything else but erotic massage. And then when my husband called to see if she would take him for a client, she said, only cash. Ooh, table shower, $10 more. You like table shower. This is going on in Rapid City. We have nobody on our board from the western part of the state. We have a long way to go. We've come a long ways. I'm looking forward to effective progress. Sioux Falls can be a leader. We have some issues, and there's more coming down the pike if something isn't figured out. And I do stand by for questions, and I've been a therapist since '88, so frankly, in this business, I am older than dirt. Thank you.
Thank you, Randa. I did let Randa go over a little bit here. Anybody else want to address the council in regards to this issue? Okay, we'll turn it back over to council for questions, comments. Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you. I'm struggling. We have a Martin Luther King celebration this week. We're going to do a presentation at our 7 o'clock meeting about diversity and how welcoming and open we are as a society and as a community. And I can't believe what I've just heard out of your mouth, ma'am. That the insulting, racially, this is horrible testimony, and I just am embarrassed for each of you that you would put that kind of conversation into this. This started out as really a well-informed and really professional presentation, and it turned into a racially charged mess, and I just am embarrassed for each of you. I'm at a point now, Madam Chair, where I would just like to adjourn this meeting. We can certainly, if there are questions later on, maybe we can bring this back, but there is no reason that the City of Sioux Falls needs to stoop to the level of this sort of behavior. That the State Board is managing this in the way that they were directed to, and the City of Sioux Falls at that time when that board was created, the City of Sioux Falls made decisions that have held well for us, and we have not had to stoop to the level of that kind of behavior. And I'll let the group decide, but I have no questions, and I have no desire to continue this conversation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stagers.
Can you tell us how many states have licensure for massage therapists?
Counselor, I can't tell you that number off my head. The vast majority of them do.
And how long have we had this board?
The Board of Massage Therapy was enacted in 2005, and the first licenses by the board were issued in 2006, so 10 years now.
And the cost for a license?
The initial application fee is $100, or excuse me, $75, and the licensing fee is $45. So it's $120 essentially for a person to get their initial license, and then we have annual renewal, which is $45 a year.
Okay. How would you respond to a comment that a lot of this licensure has to do with limiting competition?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Yeah. How would you respond to a comment that a lot of this licensure is really designed to help prevent competition?
I don't think are you referring to my comment with regard to antitrust in North Carolina?
No, just generally speaking. That because obviously when you start engaging in licensure and regulation, many times this can prevent competition. And those people who already have a license, hey, they love this stuff. But those people who do not have a licensure, they're against it.
I do think that is one of the crux of the North Carolina decision, Councilman, is that boards that are made up of people in the profession need to be very careful about how they act in keeping someone out of the profession. And that's why there's great hesitation on the part of our board, and frankly, boards across the state, in making sure that we're complying with that you're not using a market board to keep other people from enjoying the benefits of licensure. We set our requirements by statute, and anyone who meets those requirements can be issued a license. And so, you know, as far as the national exam and things like that, people are passing the national exam, they have the 500 hours, they have the insurance. As long as there's an absence of unprofessional conduct on their part, they would qualify for a state license and be entitled to be licensed.
Okay. I guess that's all I have.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Could I have Joe Franken and Chief come up? I asked both of you to be here after our leadership meeting on Friday. I'd like both of you to at least give us your opinion on this issue and any feelings. Is there any type of ordinance changes or rules, laws that we may come up with to help alleviate any issues we're seeing here in the city?
All right, Jill Franken, Health Director with the City of Sioux Falls. Based on what I've heard tonight and based on what I know historically with the repeal of the city ordinance back in 2006, I believe it was, when the state began regulating massage therapy at the state level. I haven't heard anything tonight that I think could benefit us as a community in further regulating, because what I've heard is more how to prevent someone from doing something that is against what is licensed. And so I don't see where, if we try and regulate even further those who are legitimately licensed to provide massage therapy and already regulated by the state, it seems as if what we're trying to create is something to punish those who are not legally performing work under the guise of massage therapy. I'm not sure that we could create the kind of legislation locally that could alleviate that. Rather, we need to support the state's efforts and to be working with the Board of Massage Therapy at the state level to strengthen their ability to do a fine job in regulating that at the state level. Those are my opinions.
Thank you.
Counselors, as you know, we have had some success when a complaint is referred to us and making sure that the state law is being followed for practice of massage without a license. There were some references here tonight that spoke to that. We do have units that have worked those cases. We haven't worked a lot of them, but we do work those by complaint. I wish, frankly, we had more resources to maybe do a little of that proactive type work where we could maybe go into some of those things more proactively, but the facts are we do this by referral of complaint. It occurs to me that the places that are willing to be licensed or the customers that want to go in and get a legitimate massage are going to probably seek out those places that have gone through the steps to obtain a legitimate license. And those that are looking for something else will probably seek out those places that they seem as willing to provide that. If we do license those, if the council would take it upon itself to create an ordinance, there is a model for how we could fashion that. We could have identifications, not unlike we do some of our peddlers, to make sure that the persons who are seeking out the licensed massage places can see exactly who they're dealing with, and it require them to have a license on the wall. I don't know that would be something that the council would entertain, but the way that it works now, I think that there is an effort on the part of Ms. Stalley and the board to increase communication with law enforcement, and if we're going to continue to go down the road of seeking out those places to enforce that, frankly, that communication will have to continue, if not increase, because we are more than willing to work with that board and any complainant that would come forward and bring forth the things that we could work on.
I guess with that, the only thing I would say is that we have Keith Allenstein, who's very efficient as our legal staff for the police department, and if we see any need, then he can work with the state board to come up with something that could enhance whatever is needed for either the health department or police department to enforce any violations, I guess.
I agree. Keith is very efficient.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do appreciate having the House bill. I'm sorry, any other questions before we start? Okay. Appreciate having the House Bill 1027. I think that it is a start. Like we know, all things with legislation, it takes time to continue to work out all the details in that. The art of compromise is both parties being a little bit uncomfortable, and I know full well, being in Pierre during the massage therapy bill that was introduced my first year, I believe, in Pierre, and going through that process, it was certainly interesting, and it lasted the entire session. And so my hope is that people on all aspects involved, law enforcement, health department, those on the board, citizens, massage therapists, can continue to collaborate respectively so we can find workable solutions instead of some finger pointing. And I just hope that we continue to watch this bill, make sure it passes. If we have input, give input. If there's things we need to do at the local level, I think that we should first start off, increasing the communication between our police, which they're willing to do with Jennifer and her team, as well as the board, and just keep on working at it. It does take time. We repealed our board in 2006. It doesn't mean that it's perfect here. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be changes made over that time as well. And so, if it's looking at an establishment licensure, hours of operation, things of that nature, that's something certainly that we can talk about, but it needs to be for everyone across the board. So, anything else in regards to this? Otherwise, we'll move to open discussion. Any open discussion? Open discussion?
Move to adjourn.
And we will adjourn public services. Thank you.